I saw a great quote by the late and amazing Charlie Munger, which was, because people talk about fear and greed a lot, is driving the cycle. When you're in a greed cycle, that's when everyone's sentiment's high and things are moving fast. And when everyone's fearful, they sort of run away like the school of fish, they dart the other direction.
Yeah.
So that's always been quite an interesting, sort of way of framing it. But what Charlie Munger points out is it's not actually greed that drives the market, it's envy. Yes. And I think that's a really interesting insight, is that people get envious of other people and want to do that too. Not the best side of human nature.
No, that's right.
Welcome to the LoweDown, Wellington's #1 real estate podcast. This is episode 15. Here again with Adam. Don't really need any introduction, Adam. We've been doing this for 15 episodes. Can you believe it?
15 episodes, where'd it go?
I agree. Now, we're in somewhere different today.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about where we are?
Sure.
And why we're here?
We're here at Whakamaru, the new building that Lowe and Co.'s been kind of supporting and sponsoring over the last, 2 years? In here in Mount Cook, Newtown, the new community centre. I mean, it's a phenomenal place. This is actually the first time I've been here since it's finished, because I couldn't make it to the opening because my dog was sick.
Oh no, dog all right?
Yeah, the dog's fine. But what an incredible facility we got here. And coming in here, we just grabbed a coffee, and there's tons of people hanging around and coming in to get something to drink, have some food, a few people meeting, and we're up here in this beautiful boardroom. What an incredible building, and what an amazing thing to be a part of, eh?
Amazing thing to be a part of, an amazing asset for Wellington. I mean, this is a place, I think Murray and the City Mission's vision for this is a know us and them.
Yeah.
And
that's what it certainly feels like, the way.
It really does. It was an absolute hive of activity down there in the cafe, which is amazing to see. And
beautiful food.
Beautiful food, it's just fantastic. So what an asset for Wellington, and it's a credit to the City Mission for getting that across the line and building something.
Totally it is. So
inspiring.
Hats off to Murray and the team.
Yeah. So Adam, today we're going to talk about the property cycle, where we are in it. And I actually just thought it might be worth asking you about your background on this, because you studied maths, right? I mean, there's a reason why you love the sort of, what do you call it, the economic...
Don't make this too personal. No.
But to tell us a little bit about why you love the numbers and your background with mathematics and you studied.
I mean, I suppose I just have a bent towards that just because I do, and throughout school and university, I studied mathematics and financial mathematics. And out of university, I went into the insurance industry and was training to be an actuary. Now, I never qualified to be an actuary, but it's kind of like a habit I've never been able to kick. So it's just always been there. And so, I can, I don't know, it comes naturally to me to look at the graphs and to analyse the trends and to try and see the patterns and that stuff is, I don't know, it's just of interest. My background pre-real estate was initially in insurance and crunching all the numbers in the life insurance industry and stuff. And then since then it was property project management and so on.
Statistics and probability, right?
As an
actuary.
Yeah. And a lot of forecasting and complex models with multiple variables
It's a good background for people to know, because you've leveraged your skill set in that really well as a real estate agent, and you use and your insights are fantastic. I know that the entire team gets a huge amount about from you, and you did a great session on Wednesday for the entire team on where we are in October for particularly the Wellington market. I thought it'd be cool to talk about property cycle today, because everyone knows that these things like economic cycles happen, but I feel like the property cycle is pretty consistent. I mean, obviously, things rhyme; they don't repeat exactly, but there is a real flow to it, isn't there, throughout the cycle? And what do you think about that?
Well, I agree. I mean, there are drivers in one stage of the cycle that then feed into the next stage. And there's a reason why it repeats, because there's just a logic that flows from 12 to 1 to 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 again.
And what's your point? What's your opinion on why it's slightly more consistent than, say, other economic cycles that we see?
I don't know that it is. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't studied that, but Most of these cycles. I mean, you sort of said it. You said history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And some of these cycles are a bit longer, and some of them are a bit shorter because various things might accelerate. I mean, because COVID made a mess of it, right? I mean, in my opinion, we were coming to the end of the boom when COVID came along, and that just extenuated it and accelerated it back out again and prolonged it. And in the end, that was one of the main drivers for why it ended up crashing, because it just went too far. But
True, good point. And so what do we mean by a cycle?
What do we mean by a cycle? Well, just a pattern of how the market behaves in various stages over a period of time. So we're talking about the property cycle here, and we've got the schematic here going, metaphorically using a 12-hour clock. 12, 1, 2, 3, and and so on, and 12 being the peak, and 6 o'clock being the bottom of the market, the trough, and then there are various drivers, and as well as that, human psychology and emotion feeds into it as well.
Because we're talking about prices here, really, aren't we? When we talk about a clock, we're talking about price movements.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's what most people would want to know. I mean, in terms of price movements, but there's all sorts of other features and dynamics, of course, in there in terms of the volume of sales and other things that feed into it, like construction and the rental market.
Yes, how easy it is to buy, how hard it is to buy, how easy it is to sell, how hard it is to sell. These are all important factors, whether it's related to price or not.
Yes, I mean, and I always say that activity leads prices. So prices are the end result of the combination of activities that are happening in the months or prior to that, of course. But
so we can pop the property clock, so to speak, which is just a nice way of framing the cycle, isn't it? It's kind of easy for people to understand. It just shows it. So we can probably pop that up on the screen to have a look at. Your opinion. Obviously, where do you think we are in that property clock cycle? Like, where do you think we are right now?
So if 12 o'clock's the absolute peak and 6 o'clock is the absolute trough, I reckon we're like 6:30.
So the schematic.
Yeah, I mean, this schematic here says 7 a.m. I don't know whether it's AM or PM actually, but it's a 12-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock.
It just happens to be random that's there.
I reckon we are at the bottom. And we've been at the bottom for a wee while, so that's why I think we're if I had to choose before the bottom or after the bottom, I would say we're probably slightly past the bottom. The question is, when do we start seeing? When do we move to 7 or 8 o'clock? Because if you look through there, we've been through the peak. We had oversupply. Let's just go back a few years, right? Because we've been in this since the peak of the market, or since prices last peaked, and then they came off. That was 3 years ago, almost exactly, October 2021. So we're now November 2024. 3 years ago, we saw once people realised, gosh, it looks like prices have peaked, they've stopped going up. Then all of a sudden, all these vendors who wanted to sell but were holding on because prices are still rising. I don't want to miss out on any more price gains. Then all of a sudden they go, oh, the market stopped going up, and we had an absolute ocean of properties come to the market. Well, by that point, buyers had stepped back because they could see, interest rates are going up and prices aren't going up anymore. There's no FOMO. And so massive supply increase, buyers stepped back. And so prices absolutely fell off a cliff relative to history. It was a huge drop. We dropped by, it'd be something like over 20% in the following 12 months. And so that's oversupply, as you can see there, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, massive oversupply, and followed by falling sales volumes, and then falling prices. Right, that's absolutely what happened. Then building consents start coming off because everyone can see, well, there's no point. Building prices, construction prices, still astronomically high, still going up. Inflation was crushing us, cost of living crisis and all that. And so with costs going up and the value of real estate coming down, there's no margin anymore.
No.
So all of a sudden, all these projects that were approved to go ahead, a bunch of them get cancelled because no longer is there a margin. So construction, and we've seen building consents come right off. We haven't seen them fall nearly to the same degree as we saw after the GFC. I mean, we hit a low of something like 13,500 building consents in something like 2010 or 11 in the years following the GFC. And we're now at numbers way in excess of that, but still considerably down from where we were at a few years ago.
I think there could be still further to fall on that front, perhaps.
I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but the trends that I can see and the commentary I can see from people who I respect, who have more of an insight into this than me, they're suggesting, I think, that the slowdown is now coming to an end. It seems to be bottoming out. And so, whereas after the GFC, we came down to those extremely low levels, and one of the reasons because I believe that the construction volumes in Auckland were really constrained for a long period of time, and so that was one of the reasons why the Auckland market really led the boom last time, because the constraint in the construction in Auckland was so much worse than it was elsewhere. Now, I don't have any numbers or anything, but that's just, I seem to remember an article that said something like that. So this time around, it might not be quite the same as we come out of it. And the constraint given by the building consent numbers isn't nearly as tight. So we've seen the fall in construction, which on this clock says 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And then prices have bottomed out. Look, prices have been going broadly sideways for the last 2 years. In fact, a little bit longer than 2 years. Broadly sideways, bumping around. In Wellington, I'm talking about here. And so we've been bumping along the bottom now, I think, for quite some period of time, for over 2 years, I reckon. So this between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock or 6:30, where I think we are now, has been a real slow period. It's been quite a long period of time. When are we going to get undersupply? We are nowhere near undersupply of real estate right now. Yeah. So the number of listings on Trade Me, we've been at about these levels. I think it's about 3,000 in the Wellington region. We've been at those levels a couple of times in the last 3 years. Prior to that, we have to go back to early 2015 before we've seen volumes of listings on Trade Me in the Wellington region higher than where we are today. So that's a long time. So for the buyers out there looking right now, if you think there's not much to choose from, think again.
Yes.
You have an ocean of choice out there right now.
Yeah.
Take this opportunity, make the most
That's
of it.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's a great, you've talked through where we are in the property cycle now. You've talked through, how that property clock relates to, what we've just been through over the last few years. And it does, the only thing that's not on here, which I have seen on other property clock schematics, but is, of course, the credit cycle as well. That's the only thing that's not really on there.
The ease or difficulty of getting finance.
Yeah, because
it's been real hard.
Yeah.
It's been hard the last few years.
Yeah.
And interest rates are much higher. Obviously, the bank's test rates have gone up, went up to like 9%, 9.5%. I believe they've come back down a little bit now with interest rates falling. And then we've also had the LVR restrictions. We've got the DTI restrictions, all these macro tools, which obviously are designed to keep the whole finance system safe.
Yes.
But the cost is a constraint on productivity and a constraint on people taking risks. There's an impact on people who aren't qualifying as easily for finance, that they're actually locked out of the housing market a bit.
I mean, I would make an argument that the credit it is a credit cycle, and actually that is the driver of this property clock is a credit cycle, because that's where it all starts, doesn't it? I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the falling construction and how right now there's just the property prices going down and the cost of building going up. Well, a lot of that stuff is driven by the availability of credit and the cost of credit, and so if you actually look at the leverage that's required from developers, if you look at the leverage that's required from homeowners to buy houses, the demand and the supply side are both driven by the cost of that credit. So
the cost and availability.
Yeah, and availability, exactly. So I would say the supply of credit and the cost of credit are probably the fundamental drivers of this property clock.
Yeah, do you think it's a bigger driver than the actual cost of well, like you say, this cost of credit, so the interest
cost
rates
is sort of the
on.
outcome, isn't it? Like
I'm not a developer. I'm only sort of imagining how a developer thinks, but they're business people, so they are definitely focused on or concerned about, if I build something, can I sell it easily? Is there a risk I'm going to be stuck with it and holding this cost or this asset? And secondly, what's the price that I can sell it at? And clearly, the margin is of critical importance. And as you know, if you're going to be building an asset, building something, you want a margin of safety. So a nice, healthy margin going into it, so you can absorb some movements and so on. And if those prices just aren't there, What you're saying is that the credit cycle drives that.
Yes, I think it's the fundamental driver to start with. It's the kind of fundamentals that spark things, and it's actually the sentiment that takes it off from there. So, and actually, I think this is a good point, because we wanted to talk about, well, at least from my perspective, I feel like the property market is more illiquid than say the share market, and so you get a sort of a longer, you get this long cycle that's quite predictable, because the reality is you need to see cutting interest rates, which is kind of the spark, and so things get cheaper. That drives productivity and back into the economy, which drives sentiment. Then of course the cost of borrowing is cheaper. People start to come out of the woodwork, and then
businesses employ people again. They invest in plant machinery. They open a new shop. They tap into a new export market.
Yep, and so on. And then, of course, what happens is, of course, in the latter half of that general economic cycle, people start to see the capital gains other people are getting, and that's when the sentiment takes hold.
Yeah, that's when FOMO really kicks in.
Missing out, and that's when you get these peaks. And if we talk about what drives a cycle, like, why shouldn't property prices and interest rates just be exactly the same all the time, right? and just stay the same. And you hit the nail on the head at the start, which is that we're dealing with human nature, and that's fundamentally what drives a cycle. So
as you said, look, when the cycle gets going and prices are going up, and I can see the idiot next door just made a whole lot more money than I did, and I'm smarter than them, and so I got to get in to prove that I can do it too, and then it just gathers this whole momentum of its own. It's not based on fundamentals. I mean, sometimes people say, well, interest rates are dropping, therefore prices will go up. Well, it doesn't happen that fast, because the market is driven by sentiment, and the fundamentals feed into sentiment with a seriously long delay.
I saw a great quote by the late and amazing Charlie Munger, which was, because people talk about fear and greed a lot, is driving the cycle. When you're in a greed cycle, that's when everyone's sentiment's high and things are moving fast, and when everyone's fearful, they sort of run away like the school of fish. They dart the other direction. So that's always been quite an interesting, sort of way of framing it. But what Charlie Munger points out is it's not actually fear that drives or not actually greed that drives the market. It's envy. Yes. And I think that's a really interesting insight, is that people get envious of other people and want to do that too. Yeah,
it's always the gap between me and them that makes us want to.
Not the best side of human nature.
No, no, that's right. Yeah. So when as long as there are human beings involved, and of course that's all the market is made up of. There's houses in there too, of course, but it's driven by the people, the buyers and the sellers, and the pendulum will always swing too far in both directions. So when the market is really booming and people are absolutely frothing, they will pay what in hindsight looks like insane money, and where you just cannot see the fundamentals supporting such a price. And in the other direction, I mean, you look around now and you see what houses are selling for now, and I mean, you seriously think, God, this is an incredible value. There's no way I can produce a house for anywhere near that sort of price. Large properties built well, selling for, I don't know, $4,000 a square metre or something like that. It's just no way you can build them. They're way below replacement cost. And that's why no one's building them. Yeah.
And so if we think about, obviously the demand side, a growing population is important for, the demand side to be high enough for builders to come back in and start, and obviously for developers to come and start building again. And
it helps with liquidity, doesn't it?
Yes.
It means there's plenty of sales taking place.
But we know
minimal risk of not affecting a sale.
But you had some great graphs in your presentation to the team the other day, which were really insightful around where we are in the migration cycle, that we've just come off a huge migration boom, but that's crashed now, right? Or it's crashing.
Yep.
And then also that coincides with a time when we've got net migration out of New Zealand by Kiwis.
Yes.
So in droves, by the looks
massive.
So that's actually
50,000 or something per annum at the moment. Yeah.
So if we're looking forward now, if we say, right, we're going to talk about where we're going, where we are in the property cycle, perhaps, would you say we really need, for us to be at, say, 7, where we're starting to get into an undersupply situation, we're not just going to need builders to come out of the woodwork, but we're also going to need net migration, just net migration. We're going to need net migration to turn up significantly before that or to help that.
Yeah, I mean, do we need more people in the country to increase demand. That obviously will increase demand. It's not the only source of increased demand, of course, because we know there's a whole lot of buyers out there that are backed up that have been scared of making a move, but life has carried on in the meantime. So there's, for the last 3 years, the number of sales taking place is suppressed, right? So there's a whole lot of demand.
But that's to get back to normal. I wonder if that demand would be enough to create like we're talking about a cycle, getting back to rising prices. And again, this is partly why I think these cycles are long. Like when you look at that property clock, you might think, oh, we're at the bottom now. Maybe in 2 years' time, I'll sell my house for 20% more. Well, it's just not going to work like that. Like we're in a long haul now. I remember coming out of 2009, which was the bottom of the last cycle. It took 6 years before we got back to sort of inflation beating capital gains in Wellington. Now, I'm not suggesting that it'll be exactly the same this time, but what I'm saying is, it's already been 3. Yeah.
It's already been 3.
Yeah.
So after the GFC, it was 7 years or 7.5 years.
It's been 3 since the peak, but 2009 was 2 years since the peak as well, right?
Yes.
So 2010 would be the equivalent, I think, of now in that cycle.
Sure.
So that was still 5 and almost 6 years, because it was late 2015 when things started taking off. So I think so. I guess the point is, do you think that we're going to need to see obviously lowering interest costs, which is happening? Then we're going to need to see obviously this underbuilding which is going on is going to sort of constrain supply, but it's only going to constrain supply once the level of demand is higher than what exists today, right? And so for that to come back in, you've got the normal trading of people just upsizing, downsizing, which roughly match each other.
Sure, but we've got some catch up to do. So we've had a period where the volume has been below average, it's been suppressed, and even before we factor in immigration, we have to have a period where those people catch up.
Yes.
So that will be where the curve will go above the x-axis.
Agree entirely. We've had a little bit of that this year. Sales volumes in Wellington are up about 32% or something this year so far.
And but they're not up to
long-term
normal
average
levels.
Yes, but so the long-term average in Wellington City, not the region, was 4,000. That's across 20 years, 4,000 per annum.
Yep.
We're at just over 3,000. So you're right, we've still got about 25% or so, almost a third, isn't it?
That's
33% to go, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
But here's the interesting...
But the pendulum doesn't just go to equilibrium. It swings way past, it goes the other way. Agreed. So we'll go from, if that happens, we could go for a few years at 5,000, 5,500 a year before we factored in any immigration.
Well, here's an interesting point. I agree. Here's an interesting point. In between 2015 and 2009 and 2015, we were averaging 4,000 then per year, but prices were neither going up nor down. So the point is, we could have that 33. Technically, there's no reason why we couldn't have that volume come back without a booming market.
100%, completely. Yeah. Because if you get this a big increase in demand, but at the same time it's matched by an increase in supply.
Yes.
Then that's and we know also that there's a lot of vendors have said, whoa.
Yes.
There's no way I'm selling now with the prices having done what they have now. Let me know when prices go back up again, or that sort of thing. But in the meantime, have we still had people getting divorced? Have we still had people passing away? Have we getting married, having children, relocating for work? All these things are taking place. Life hasn't stopped.
The need-based demand doesn't really change, right? Like that's always there. It's just delayed, isn't it?
Delayed,
and that's it's a fascinating thing about it.
So, my personal hope is that we get the buyers coming back because they've got confidence that prices aren't going to fall further. And interest rates are lower, so I can qualify for more finance. So we get all this demand coming back, and at the same time we get supply coming back because vendors go, righto, there's a stable market again. We can effect a sale without too much risk. Let's get on with life. And so the two increase sort of roughly at the same time, and we just get more transactions taking place. So people can just get on with their lives without prices racing away again. Because goodness, in my opinion, we need prices to stay moderate for a period of time to allow the economy to get back on its feet, to allow businesses to recover again and again start investing again, so that we can get unemployment back down again, wages start growing again, make houses more affordable, as they already have become significantly so in the last 3 years. I think another year or two of prices where they are now would be good in my opinion. But anyway.
No, I totally agree. And so, and that would be my best guess if I was making a prediction for the future, is that I feel like we're going to have pretty stagnant property prices. There'll be little fluctuations here and there due to the supply side, and but we might be in for sort of another 2 to 5 years of a fairly stagnant, price-wise, a fairly stagnant market.
I would struggle with 5 years, but I mean, let's see.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
And in terms of the property cycle, of your take on the future, what do you think? What do you, if we're at sort of 6 or 7 o'clock now?
Yeah, how about 6? I'm going to call it now. I mean, what we need to get to undersupply is what's going to drive undersupply. So obviously the maintained low levels of building consents. Increased immigration will certainly drive undersupply. Buyers coming out of the woodwork and just buying stuff. If rents go up, that will encourage tenants out of the rental market and to buy properties, because the equation between shall I rent, shall I buy, it's cheaper to buy again because interest rates come down, prices haven't gone up, rents are going up, it squeezes that equation. So all these things can help drive the undersupply, and only after we've gotten supply back down again will we start to see prices coming up again.
And so, if we were to wrap this up, I think as in a sort of practical sense, I think the answer is the same as we've talked about in other podcasts, which is that we are in a buyer's market, and totally. We probably will be for some time. And so for those people, don't wait to get envious of others, or don't wait for FOMO.
No.
Think now if you're looking to buy a family home or a house. If you're a first-time buyer, now's the time to start thinking about getting that deposit together, and while the fundamentals mean that buying is good.
Yeah, I mean, you might think, well, I want to wait for interest rates to drop a little bit further, make it more affordable. Everyone else is thinking the same. So as soon as once you allow interest rates to drop further and make it a whole lot more affordable, everyone else will be pouring in the market. You're going to be competing with way more buyers. And as we've said many times before, you marry the property, you date the rate. So if you can just buy now and ride that interest rate curve down a bit for 6 months, 9 months, it'll be more affordable then. You would have secured a property at a good price now and maybe avoid some of the competition that might be coming in 6, 12 months, 18 months.
Adam, thanks for your insights on the property cycle. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
That was the Lowdown. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll be back in to do it next week. And a huge thank you to the Wellington City Mission and the team here for allowing us to do the podcast here, which is, I'd encourage everyone to come down, have some food in the cafe, and come and check it out. Thank you.
See you next time.